Getting a faculty position begins with the application. If you are in a STEM field, the application generally consists of a cover letter, a CV, a research statement, a teaching statement, and recommendations. While many graduate students and postdocs are familiar with how to put together a cover letter and a CV, the research and teaching statements can be trickier. I'm Ronke Olabisi in the Biomedical Engineering department at UC Irvine. In this presentation, I will go over what makes a good packet, provide examples, and supply resources at the end that can get you started.
When you begin looking for a job, you'll find a variety of different job application requests, and universities will post these. And some of these are kind of like no application requests, where they'll ask you to send a CV and 3 letters of recommendation to a specific place. For the most part, you'll get typical requests. And typical requests, they'll say applicants should submit a current CV, a cover letter that summarizes your experience, your career interests, and what you can contribute. Sometimes you'll be asked to be considered. You need to complete a diversity statement as well, the names and email addresses of 3 persons that will give you a letter of reference. Sometimes you'll be asked for a teaching statement as well. But almost all of them, if you are in STEM, will in some way ask for a research statement as well. Some of these are enhanced requests where you want a cover letter, a curriculum vitae, your most recent publications, and your research plan, which is going to be evaluated, and then the name and address and telephone number of 3 references. And so we'll go through all elements of these job application requests. And first we'll start with the cover letter. And so the cover letter can be 1 to 2 pages, and really no more than that, ideally 1 page. And you have to remember that professors who are reading this, the search committee who is reading this, is going through over 100 applications generally, sometimes 200, sometimes 300 to 400. And so you want it to be short and to the point. And so you want to make sure that you have your header, and it's fine for your header to be where you are currently. So you're either a postdoc or a graduate student, use the header of your institution. You want it to be clear who you are and how they can contact you. So all of this should be current. You want to make sure that you show how you fit the requirements for the job. And so if they, in their description, say that they want the use of innovative methodologies, somewhere in your cover letter address how your research uses innovative methodologies. If they're looking for someone in cancer biology, you want to discuss how you could fit within cancer biology, even if you weren't necessarily researching cancer. You may be researching vasculogenesis, for instance, and that is an important question in cancer biology. Okay, so you want to discuss what position you're applying for, so you want to list that right there. It's also a good idea to list where you saw the application, whether you saw it on the departmental website, whether or not you saw it in higher education, Chronicles of Higher Education, or in Science, so that they know where their ads are reaching people. So you want to say where you are and who you're working with. You're giving them your reputation, your advisor and your institution. You want to discuss what your research, your current research is, and that gives them an idea of your fit within the department. In here, for instance, they're talking about pancreatic adenocarcinoma accounts for about 85% of pancreatic cancer cases. And so this is something that's clearly fundable. And so while you have a clear understanding of your research, you have to remember that not everybody will. There'll be experts in their own field, and so there'll be generalists within a STEM field. So they have a background in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, but that doesn't necessarily mean they know what is important in your research. So you want to make it clear. You want to talk about how you will collaborate. So, or how you have collaborated, who you're bringing to the department. And so this again is reputation and collaborators. You want to discuss your productivity, how you developed this novel approach, your findings, the manuscripts that you're developing. So that shows them that you're productive. It gives them a sense of your productivity. Here, you got a travel award, and that gives them a sense of your fundability, and they want to know that the person that they hire is fundable. And so here you're giving a research goal, and so they want answers in the first page that they read. So yes, they're going to read the whole application, but if you can get them excited at the cover letter stage, then they're going to go into your application excited. And so you have to remember that these are people. So you don't want this to be tiny, tiny font, because most professors will eventually need classes that are older than you are. And if you make it tiny font, you're just going to make them angry. And so here, this research goal is to identify downstream signaling, which will allow, and you're giving them an idea of what contribution you will make to the field, and that you have a clear vision, and that vision is fundable. And so here you're talking about your findings again, your productivity, how you have been funded in the past, because if you're funded in the past, you're more likely to be funded in the future. And so if you can put all of these things into your cover letter, it is a good idea. Okay. And so this is the second page of that cover letter. Again, reputation, funding, productivity with your publications, 3 publications in PNAS, and all of these things. Here you're discussing how you develop different ideas, and how you develop the fundable ideas. You contributed to an NIH R01. Not everybody has done that. And so you want to take a picture of your signature, because almost everything now is online, or you can use a signature function. And so you want to make sure that the most important stuff is on the first page if you go over one page, because if they're not interested, they're not going to continue reading. And so here you're talking about your teaching in this, but most R1s, so research intensive institutions, they don't require that you have had much teaching and mentoring or service. So if this is something that you want to put because you have it, putting it on the second page is better than putting it on the first page. Okay, so now the CV. Right now, this is a 4-page CV. There is no page limit to your curriculum vitae. And your curriculum vitae is supposed to demonstrate everything about you. It's your history. And what you want it to do is you want it to have everything but the most important things that the committee wants up front. And so it's not uncommon to have an 8-page CV. It's not a resume, it's a CV. So you can think of a CV as an annotated resume, but it will have everything. And so this is page 1, and we're talking about our reputation. This is where you are currently, and you have all of your contact information on the first page. And you can also put secondary contact information. It's not necessary, but you should consider providing your cell phone number somewhere here, because if they can't get in touch with you, they're moving on to the next person. And so conventionally, we start with education, and then we start with research experience. And so you want to list everything in reverse chronological order. So you want the most recent stuff, because they're going to be most excited by the most recent stuff, and they want to see it. And so you want to make a case. You want to make a case for yourself. You're making a case for yourself. Look, I have research experience, and it's awesome. And you really want to hire me because look at my research experience. And my research experience is with this person with this great reputation. And I'm productive because I demonstrated this thing, I developed this method, and I initiated collaborations. And this is what you're going to see when you hire me. So essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to convince the hiring committee that not only are their dreams going to be answered by hiring you, but that they're going to be relieved, right? So they want to, they're under this pressure to find the perfect fit, and they want to be relieved when they're reading your application. And so you're showing them that everything that you possibly could want in a colleague, you have in me, and I am the only one who can do this, right? And so as a graduate student, you went to a good university or a known university. And so or even if it's a smaller university, you want to highlight the things that are relevant to that university. You want to talk about the reputation that that university has, because every university has something that only they are known for. And so here, you're talking about your productivity again, and you're talking about where it's published. And so you're first talking about your productivity as a postdoctoral researcher and your productivity as a graduate student. And so there are some fields where you can avoid the postdoc. You don't necessarily need to do the postdoc, but a lot of engineering requires that you have a postdoc. And so when you list these, you want to list these in the reverse chronological order again. You want to include your advisors, because people may have heard of them and they may be collaborators with them, and they may think, oh, any person coming out of that person's lab is a good person, or a well-trained person. You're talking about your fundability again. And this section here, you're talking about your past, future, and current grant funding. And so it's not always found in CVs, but it can make a case for the fundability. So if you have grants, definitely put it in. If you have scholarships, put it in. It indicates that you are a fundable person, and you want to indicate the total amount, and you want to make sure that your references know this, so that if they are called because they're very interested in you, they can say, yes, they did get that. And so here, this section was recommended. All of this is from the UCSF Office of Career and Research Planning. So it's of Career and Professional Development. So they looked at faculty and they asked them what faculty would like to have. And it was recommended by faculty who want to know that even if you haven't gotten a grant, you have experience with applying for grants. And so this is, or if you haven't gotten a grant on your own, you have written one, and so you can contribute, and you are somebody who comes in able to hit the ground running. Okay, and so fellowships will also talk about how fundable you are. Honors and awards, it also talks about your reputation, and so that you are somebody who is starting to make a name for yourself. And so anything that you can put in here is good. The committee members, they're going to go to this section to see, they want to see that you have first author papers. They want to see how long ago you've published. They're going to count how many papers that you have. And so have you been publishing regularly throughout your career, or have you not? And so you can get positions if you've so if you've never published, you're unlikely to get a faculty position. And so this would be a good chance to go to a postdoc. If publishing isn't huge in your field, but writing books, so there's going to be a whole slew of different recommendations. This is really focused for STEM. And so your next page, you're gonna, if you have a patent, you definitely want to put that. Submitted manuscripts, you want to put these, if they're under revision, put that they're under revision. If they're still in review, put that. If they're being because when you get them back, the reviewers will tell you which revisions to make, and so they'll know which stage it is under here. Some people don't like to see manuscripts in preparation, because some of these manuscripts in preparation never become a full paper that's published. And so they don't necessarily want you to put that in there. If you list them, you better make sure that it's going to be published, or that it's going to be submitted at least. and that it truly is in preparation, because some people think that, oh, it's in my head and so it's in preparation. And then the worst thing that can happen is that the committee will request a draft of that manuscript to see what you have done. And if it's only in your head, that's not a position that you want to put yourself in, because you've just tanked yourself right there. So if you have any teaching experience, you want to put it. And so if you're applying to a research intensive institution, they don't require that much. And therefore that's why it's later here. If you're going to a teaching heavy institution where there are only undergraduates and the undergraduates would be doing the research, you want to put your teaching experience before this research. And so they don't necessarily expect you to have much mentoring experience. However, if you have mentoring experience, put it in your CV, because again, the CV, it documents everything that you have done. It's your whole academic career, and they also don't expect you to necessarily have service and outreach, but if you have service and outreach, put it here as well. And so the presentations that you've done, it's going to demonstrate your reputation. So how many conferences have you gone to? Some people separate these into oral and poster, and some people don't, because usually graduate students get mostly posters, and then you can just put that these were your presentations, and you give the conference name, you give all of the people on here, and you want to highlight your name in bold. You want to do that for everything. And so remember, there's no limit to the length. It's really expected to list all of your experience, all of your skills. It's not unusual to go many pages. And so when you're applying for these, you have to understand who's going to be reading this. And like I said, they're going to be reading a lot of proposals. Many of them will be middle-aged or older. So if you're writing in a tiny font, they're not going to like you at all. Don't go lower than 12 in anything if you can avoid it. Most of them will not be specialists in your field. And so if you're using jargon, for instance, a lot of people like to say HA in my field. And HA, if you're in orthopedic biomechanics, is hydroxyapatite. If you are in another field within tissue engineering, it's hyaluronic acid. And so if you're putting these abbreviations, then you're confusing people. And if people have to read 400 or 200 proposals or applications, if they are confused, they're not going to spend the extra time to get unconfused. They're just going to go on to the next. So you have to keep this in mind when you are applying. And so there are various structures of a research statement. There are some that have an executive summary. It's not required. It's often useful. There are some that have a background. They demonstrate what your current research is. They talk about what you're doing right now, promising lines of inquiry that you're looking for or you're looking at, and then your 3 to 5 year research agenda, where you describe your short and long-term goals, your plans, the approaches that you're going to take, and they address the relevance to your employer, the university that you will be applying to. They address the relevance to your discipline and to society at large. There are other research statements. They list the executive summary as well, and this would be a first paragraph. And then they divide the research by level. So you describe your graduate research that you did project by project. You would describe the postdoctoral research that you did project by project, and the future research that you did project by project. And generally, research statements are going to be 2 to 6 pages. It's a good idea to have 1 page. 3 is an average good approach to have. 3 to 4 pages is a good approach. Some places will tell you that they want it to be 2 pages. And so it's a good idea to have that prepared as well. And so then you'll have to shorten down a 6-page research plan. And so your research statement, you want it to be something that excites the people. And if everybody else is giving 3-page brief, concise, exciting research statements, and you've got a 6-page one, that's not going to be as exciting to somebody who has to read 100 pages. So my recommendation is to shoot for 3 to 4 pages. But this, again, is very field dependent. So the best thing that you can do when in doubt, ask your advisor, ask your supervisor, ask people who are experts in the field, because they will have been on search committees and they can tell you, oh, no, you don't even want to go to 3 pages, you want to stay at 2, or there's no way you can get everything accomplished in these 2 pages, so you're going to have to go to 5. And so others are where they'll give an executive summary, which is the first paragraph, and then describe a project that will start immediately, and then describe a project that will start within 2 to 3 years, and then describe the long-term project that you see yourself doing in the length and breadth of your career. So what are these for? What are research statements for? And so they're really to increase the search committee's confidence in you as a future colleague. And so potential employers, they're going to expect you to really have begun thinking about your research strategically, beyond your dissertation, beyond what you've done as a postdoc. And this research is going to tell what you've been, this statement, it's going to tell what you've been doing recently, what you've been doing currently, where you want to go with your research, and how your research contributes to your field. And when you combine this with your curriculum vitae, your cover letter, and your letters of recommendations, it really will help your committee get an idea of your areas of specialty, your ability to get grants, your potential ability to get grants, how you are academically, what kind of research needs you'll have. For instance, if you can only work where there is a synchrotron and there's no synchrotron within 100 miles of where you will be applying, then you're not a good fit for that university. And it also tells them that you did not do your research on that university. And so they also want to know the compatibility with the department or with the school. And so here, this is a research statement. And again, it's taken from the UCSF career and professional development pages. And so this is a breakdown, right? And so here, they're just, you want your name on every page, because a lot of professors, again, some of us are older and some of us don't like reading from a computer and will print these out. And if they print them out and they do not staple them, then it might get mixed up, and you don't want yours to be mixed up. And that's the reason you didn't get the job, because they thought they were reading yours and it was someone else's. And so this isn't something that necessarily happens a lot, but if it could happen, why risk it? Okay, and so you want your name on every page. You want this area, this here, it helps focus them in. What is your area of specialty? That's what this first sentence is opening in. And you want your titles to reflect what you're talking about as well. Such repurposing of megatrons is central to cellular function in health and disease, but remains poorly understood. So there is a research question there. And if there's a research question there, if it's poorly understood, that gives them an idea of your fundability, that gives them an idea of where you can take this. What do you do? I use molecular tools to understand how cell behaviors are controlled, how your research contributes to that field. My lab will apply these strategies. This gives them an idea of what your research needs are. This gives an idea of in what direction you hope to go. And so first, I'm going to do this, determine how a single tweak. Then I'm going to employ innovative tools and approaches to understand this. Third, I will compare Bumblebee and the human Dinobot bug Ironhide. And my lab is going to do this, and I'm going to develop new insights into all of these and open potential avenues for therapeutic intervention. And so you're saying the direction you hope to go, and then this statement here is what it's going to be used for. And so in engineering, this is very important. we always think with application. So in science, you might, instead of one therapeutic intervention, instead of this, it would be new knowledge for understanding of blank, right? And so you would fill this in with what is relevant to your field. If you think of science as discovery and engineering as invention, you want to reflect that when you're talking, and you want to reflect what you have heard in conferences, what you have heard from your advisor, what you have heard about the importance of your field and how your research fits into that area. Okay, and so we're still on page 1, and we're giving a background, and you want to orient the reader who is an expert in their field but may not be an expert in your field. And so this OPs, it has to be defined somewhere. MT has to be defined somewhere. Don't use too much abbreviations like this. So don't use too many of these, because if you use too many of these, then the person can get lost and have to keep turning back to know what an MT or an OP or an MOH is, and they don't want to do that. You want to make this as easy as possible. The only thing that you really want to be abbreviating like this is things that almost everybody knows. Like DNA, you don't have to spell out deoxyribonucleic acid. You can just put DNA. But if you have 1 or 2 abbreviations, that's fine. If you're starting to get into the realm of 10, that's entirely too much. And so you always want to insert a figure. You want to have a figure on every page. Nobody wants to read just text. It breaks things up, and it can help explain what you're talking about for somebody who has a technical background but not in your field. Okay, and so here I have used Bumblebee to understand how MTs promote Sector 7 programs. Again, how your research contributes to your field and what you specifically have done. Here, you're still orienting the reader. Here, such large distances make it difficult to assign Sector 7 regulation. And so what is this saying? This is putting a complication in. And so it's saying it's difficult for this field. This is something that is still difficult to this field. But during my postdoctoral work, I demonstrated that you could do this. And so again, you're talking about what you have done, and this is fundable because you've answered a question to your field. Okay, and so this modification and its mechanistic impact is conserved, demonstrating the broad insight into OP biology that can be obtained through the study, right? And so these are fundable. You're demonstrating how you're fundable. So you're telling them about your research, you're telling them what you have done, you're telling them what you hope to do, and you're also telling them, I am fundable because I have solved this problem in the field. So you always want to give them context within the greater field that you are talking about. So you want to include preliminary data. And so preliminary data, it offers the most convincing argument for the viability of your research plan. And if you have preliminary data, you want to use it. Positive results, they'll be of interest, they'll be more persuasive to hiring committees than just your say-so. And the nature of your preliminary data and findings are going to vary depending on what field you have. Some people will have a lot of preliminary data, and others will not have much preliminary data at all. And so they really want to see something. So nothing is going to really ground your work as much as data. And so, well, your plan might be super exciting, but will it work? And so if you don't have any preliminary data describing what you want to do, it's okay to have preliminary data just showing that you can do it. So if you want to test whether or not this type of intervention is going to shrink tumors, but you've never done it before, if you know how to measure how tumors have the tumor size to demonstrate that you have measured tumor size with a different intervention, or that you have been able to grow tumors, or like it can just be a technical preliminary data showing that you can do what you're talking about, or you can train somebody to do what you're talking about. And so the best way, like you also want this to be an achievable aim, right? And so this first project is going to be something that you can get done when you go there. So cure cancer is not an achievable aim. That shows that you're very naive and very idealistic. Something saying where I'm going to inhibit tumor growth, if you can demonstrate that you have the tools to do this, then that's very, very convincing. And again, print out on every page your research statement and the page 1 of 4. And so it's not enough to just have page 1, because they don't know how many pages they might have lost. So page 1 of 4 is a good idea. And so when you're describing your research, does your research question build on this preliminary data that you're showing? So no preliminary data to them may equal no research question, which means no job offer at that place. And so this is the first project. In your first project, you should have something that you can demonstrate that you have done either in your graduate career or in your postdoctoral career that shows that you have the skills to do what you're proposing. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly what you're proposing. Okay, and so you want to include redundant approaches when you're describing it. Again, we've got the name on every page. So here, those candidates will be tested by overexpression or inactivation. This is a redundant approach to test the same thing, right? And so you're demonstrating that you're resourceful and that you're not just a one-trick pony or anything like that, and that your focus is on the science and that you're going to do what it takes to get it done, and then that research doesn't always work, and so you're going to test it these multiple ways. And so you want to choose an important subject, right? So the elements of this good research statement: you have an important subject, you're specific about it, you're keeping everything short, and you're focusing on the major themes, you're serious about your writing. If the reader is confused, they're going to chuck this. They don't want to deal with it. They're going to move to the next application. The project, again, something that you can work on right away. Okay, and so project 2 should be a project that you could begin within 2 to 3 years of your hiring date. You're still going to have a figure. You're going to put in, if this is further down the line, you're putting in technical preliminary data, something again demonstrating that you yourself can do this, or you can train someone to do the methods that you're proposing. Okay, and so now we're on the page 2 of the research statement still. This is your next project, the one that you will do in 2 to 3 years. You're talking about the challenge to your field, and then you're talking about how you fixed that, how you contributed to that challenge. So challenge is working with these, it's blunt tools, but I developed this protein degradation system to allow rapid conditional depletion. So I developed something that will address this challenge, and you going to always put your reference that this is the paper that you did. This is your contribution, your productivity, right? And so you're concluding this with, I have the expertise to perform this study, right? How you and you alone can do this work. And so one of the people that they interviewed said the best plans usually build on the prior experience of the applicant, but are not direct extensions of their postdoctoral work, right? And so you're learning these advanced approaches. You develop these approaches to do the research that you now described. And so you're talking about how you were trained to do the research that is now your independent research, will be your independent research. You don't want to be a copy of your advisor. And again, name on every page. And as with all aims, your aims should be interdependent. So they should be related, but they should not be they should be interrelated, but not interdependent, excuse me. And so what I mean by that is, if you in AIM 2.2 intend to test the protein that you generated from AIM 2.1, what happens if you can't generate that protein? Then you can't do AIM 2.2 and you can't do AIM 2.3. 3. So you don't want them to be interdependent. You want them to be interrelated, right? And so you're looking to develop some protein in 2.1, and maybe in 2.2 you're looking to look at how different proteins fold, right? So that's related, right? But it doesn't, you can test any protein if you're looking how different proteins fold, right? And so you want them, interdependent aims really show a certain naivete and that you don't understand that these things may not work, and then you're stuck. And you don't want to give them that impression. And again, if you, for project 3, because project 3 is your long-term, I'm going to do this one day in the future, 10 years from now. And if you have absolutely no preliminary data for this, if you do, use technical data. If you do not, you're going to put a figure anyway. You're going to put a figure that is either a beautiful flow chart or it's a schematic of what you envision the experimental flow will look like. It will be something that you can put in here to help them envision what you are talking about. And so it helps them to understand what you aim to do and what your expected results are. Preliminary data is always the best figure, but if you don't have one, then demonstrating and make it a good figure, as good as you can. And so you don't want like stick figures that are hard to understand. You want to make it, you want to, if you have to you can do a lot of this stuff in PowerPoint now, where you can use some of the clip art to make it very nice. So make your figures as nice as possible because they look very impressive when you do. And again, you're going to clearly label every page, and you're going to have your name on every page. And this is the final project that's being described. And so here, I hope to draw on the expertise of the Simmons lab to explore how blackout levels and localization. So if this is the name of the person in the institution that you are applying to, that you hope to collaborate with, it's not 100% necessarily to tailor your research statement to each institution that you apply to, but it's not a bad idea to do with your favorite applicant for your favorite institution. So if you have a top 5, it's good to list the people that you think you could collaborate with, because they might, you don't know who's going to be on that hiring committee, and that hiring or that search committee may say, hey, can you read their research statement? And if that person is like, oh my goodness, it would be wonderful to work with this person, especially if you've contacted them or if you know them peripherally, yes, they're great, then you're going to go to the top of the pile. And finally, you want to bring this all home, right? And so you want to summarize what you envision your lab will be like when they hire you, how awesome and unique you are, right? So like, I'm going to uncover this, right? I will explore this. I am ideally situated to exploit the strengths of each system. And I anticipate, you're not talking about we anymore. This is all you. You and only you are the person who can do this. You want them to be excited and relieved to have found you. You want them to be thinking, thank goodness our search is over. This is the person that we have found. And you want to be excited, and you really want to toot your own horn without blowing it here. And so this is not the place for modesty. This is the place for honesty. I am honestly the only person who can do this because I am qualified through this training and this research that I have accomplished. Now, next is the teaching statement. And this will vary depending on the type of university you apply to. So if you apply to an R1 university where research is heavily focused, this should only be 1 to 2 pages. A lot of people only have a 1-page teaching statement. If you are going to be applying to a teaching heavy university, this will be longer and you're going to have much more. And sometimes you'll be required to have a teaching portfolio. And I'm not going to go into the teaching portfolio because I do not have one and I do not feel qualified to describe that to you. And so you will have to look for that elsewhere. But I do, and I have seen many teaching statements, and so I can walk you through those. So again, you want your name on and title on every single page. And so you want a short paragraph. So the teaching statement, you're going to start off with a philosophy. So it's going to establish this unifying theme for the rest of your statement. And this philosophy, you can have a philosophy of you want to guide students. You find it rewarding. It's going to be something that's personal to you, right? And why you want to teach, why it's important to you, what you like about teaching, what your philosophy is about teaching. And you want to look up different words from pedagogy so that you can use the types of words that people are expecting to see in a teaching statement, right? They want to know that you've really considered it, right? Some people, their teaching statements include things like, I believe that when students from underrepresented groups are doing poorly, it's not on them, it's a canary in the coal mine situation. Or and by underrepresented groups, I mean women or first generation or people from underrepresented minority backgrounds. And so if you have a teaching statement that believes that, then you would say that. If you have a teaching statement that believes that, or a teaching philosophy, I mean, that believes that teaching should be fun and that, we all start off as little scientists, and at some point we learn to stop asking questions, and you want to bring that fun back. That is a teaching philosophy, right? And so there's a broad gamut of teaching philosophies. The only ones that are I wouldn't say that there are any that are wrong unless you go in and you say something like, I think that anybody who can't learn is a dummy. That is wrong. And so you want it to be well thought, but it's also your personal philosophy. And then you're going to talk about how you're going to get it done. Right. And so it's a bonus if you can name the courses you can teach. And so if you go to that university's web page and their course description, you can look up in the course catalog of your favorite institutions the names. Like this could be 151 physiology or anatomy 325. Like if you can name them, then that is great. But your teaching statement, you do not necessarily have to personalize that way. That's something that you can personalize in the cover letter, because each cover letter should definitely be personalized. Right. And so this here, you can have as general, these are the ones that I am comfortable teaching. And what you're doing, again, is you're giving the faculty relief. We have found somebody who can teach this class that I've been teaching for so long and I no longer want to teach. Awesome. Right. And so if you can teach abroad, do not lie, because if you can't teach that class because you don't understand that material, then you're going to be in a world of hurt if you take that class, if you take that job. But if you have had a class in it and you understood it and you believe that you can teach it, yes, you don't have to have taught the class before to be able to teach it, but you do have to have a confidence that going in, you could probably teach it. Okay. And so here you want to discuss your experience with teaching and or mentoring, whether you've done this formally or informally. And again, they don't require much teaching experience at an R1, but any experience that you can talk about, like if you gave a lecture to Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts, if you did something like that where it was outreach, I mean, you can talk about that. If you use pedagogical buzzwords such as inquiry-based learning or Socratic discussion or just-in-time teaching, you need to back it up with examples of what you do in the classroom or what you intend to do. And it's always a bonus to describe here, this person is describing how their teaching will be integrated with their research. And they're going to highlight how they highlight here how the students could benefit by getting these NSF awards. And the NSF really likes for you to integrate teaching and your research. And so this not only demonstrates how you view teaching, and it demonstrates that you are fundable by the NSF, who also wants to see this. And so if you don't have any formal mentoring experience, name some informal mentoring experience. Describe what your approach would be for training students in your lab, because it really, and again, clearly label every single page, you know. So it really emphasizes, when you describe the mentoring, it emphasizes that you're going to train students in your lab because they're always looking for more professors to train students. It emphasizes that you've thought about it, and it emphasizes that you have a vision of what your lab will be like when you go there. And also this again isn't necessary, but it's a bonus, this broader community. It establishes that you take broader impact seriously, and it really makes you look like an NSF fundable candidate. And finally, you want your references, and you want references at the end, and these will include any references that you put in your research statement and any references that you also put in your teaching statement. And with that, I will give you the sources. All of this was heavily borrowed from these sites, and the resources, these 2 links, this will walk you through writing your research statement. This is a great writing workbook in case you're confused or it's hard to come up with an idea. Thank you.